쌤 요거 그거 마이크 단상 좀 바꿀게요.
Can we have the sound, please? Hello, hello, yes. Good afternoon. Please, those of you who are on the side, try to fill up first the central rows, okay, so that we are not too spread out. More people will be coming. We will start in about 5 minutes. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to this session on time, despite this very intense schedule in the program. I want to ask those who are staying on the side, maybe just come. If there are seats in the center, you can fill up seats in the central rows. We will start now. Excellencies, respected panelists, dear participants, welcome to this sixth session of our Peace Summit 2023, focusing on Europe and the Middle East. My name is Jacques Marion. I'm the co-chairman of the Universal Peace Federation in Europe and the Middle East, and I have the honor to moderate this session. We gave a specific theme to this session, Prospects for Peace in Southeast Europe. Our region is strongly affected by the war in Ukraine and by growing tensions between East and West. Southeast Europe, particularly Western Balkan nations, stand at a front line in this struggle. The impact of this conflict is deeply felt in that region, where memories of war at the turn of the century are still vivid in many people's minds. We have a large panel of distinguished and respected speakers this morning, this afternoon actually, all of whom have been directly involved as heads of state and government leaders in the process of conflict resolution and transformation on the Balkan Peninsula. Each panelist would deserve a more complete introduction, but in the interest of time, I will limit myself to a brief summary of their achievements, and I will ask our speakers to please limit their presentation to 7 minutes so that we have some time for questions and discussion. The first speaker I have the privilege to introduce is His Excellency Albin Kurti, the Prime Minister of Kosovo, who just flew this morning to attend this conference. Prime Minister Kurti has been a member of the Assembly of Kosovo for 3 consecutive terms. He co-founded the Movement for Self-Determination, which is today the largest political movement in his country. Prime Minister Kurti is currently, as he mentioned this morning, involved in high-level negotiations between Kosovo and Serbia, and we are grateful, Your Excellency, that despite your intense schedule, you're able to be with us this afternoon. And right after his speech, because of an important appointment in Seoul, Prime Minister Kurti will have to leave the panel and go to Seoul, but we will continue. Please join me in welcoming Prime Minister Albin Kurti to the podium. The floor is yours. Please come to the podium.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mariam, for this kind introduction. Honorable Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, participants of this session, it's a great pleasure and honor to be today with you to share some of my thoughts regarding the situation in Western Balkans, which is a region in Southeast Europe and where Kosovo, my country, has a very important role to play. And we are trying to do our best in order to have, on one hand, peace and security, but on the other hand, also freedom and democracy. We believe that we do not have to sacrifice freedom for the sake of security or vice versa. It has been 2 years since I'm in government, and these 2 years were years of growth and anti-corruption. These were years of democratic government with institutional stability. And that's why we also had an economic dividend to the institutional stability and to the democratic character of our governance. average economic growth has been 7% of GDP, which was highest since we declared independence 15 years ago. In addition, also we have had an impressive increase of tax revenues without changing fiscal policy, of exports, and likewise of foreign direct investment. We believe that tax revenues increased, even though fiscal policy remained the same, because when people see that there is no corruption in the government, they are far more ready to pay taxes and contribute to the society. And likewise, when they have hope for the future, they rather spend than save, which is better for the lives of the people, but also for the overall country's economy. Kosovo is a double success story. In one hand, is a success story of NATO humanitarian intervention to stop the genocide of regime of Milosevic, which was in power in Serbia a quarter of a century ago. But also we are a success story of a quality democracy going hand in hand with economic development. We know very well that there are certain powers and superpowers today in the world who want to show that economic development doesn't need democracy. We can do development and growth without minding about democracy and political pluralism. We believe that development and growth without human rights, without political pluralism, without democracy, without rule of law, is not sustainable, is not fair, and it's harmful for human dignity. We must have human dignity, freedom and rights and liberties for the people, but also overall economic growth, which becomes well-being for the citizens. In the past, we have seen that favoring political stability over democratic reforms brought autocrats in power. Who are afraid about themselves and cynical about others. With solidarity, we can make hope and passion win over fear and cynicism, precisely by never repeating these mistakes where short-term political stability is more important than democratic and progressive reforms. However, during my mandate, very early on, I had to face pandemic COVID-19, and I remember very well that when I went in office, there were no vaccines and there were no contracts on vaccines. However, we were very clear that we're not going to take vaccines from non-democratic countries, even though we had to suffer a severe attack that we are not minding sufficiently about health situation of the public. In a record manner, we managed to get contracts with Pfizer, and with the help of EU and US, in the first year, 2021, we managed to vaccinate over 60% of the population with at least one dose. So in contrast to some other countries, we were clear from the very beginning. No vaccines from Russian Federation and no vaccines from People's Republic of China. Because we knew very well that whatever help you get from someone who is not democratic, it will have strings attached, and at the same time, it will be used as an instrument to pressure you elsewhere. That's why we suffered at the beginning, but we gathered all our strength and we nonetheless did well. However, when we started to slowly but surely get out from the pandemic COVID-19 crisis, in our neighborhood, within our continent, the war got back. Namely, unprovoked, unjustified Russian military aggression and invasion in Ukraine. From early on, we decided that we have to align ourselves with the United States of America, with European Union, with United Kingdom in condemning this aggression and invasion, and in putting sanctions to Russian Federation, to Kremlin, to despotic President Putin. We, from the very beginning, have shown sympathy, empathy, and solidarity with national liberation struggle of Ukrainian people. And at the same time, we have pledged to receive up to 5,000 refugees from Ukraine. At this point in time, 13 journalists from Ukraine are residents of capital town of Kosovo, Pristina. They are writing their reports from Kosovo, where they got not only sheltered, but also became residents of our capital. Beforehand, we have sheltered 1,893 Afghan refugees. There are already vast majority of them being placed in other Western countries, but in Kosovo we still have 410 refugees from Afghanistan. We consider that as a young democracy, it is a humanitarian obligation to help those who are most in need. On the other hand, it is duty to our partners and allies to also help them when they are in need. Last November, we produced good news from the region. 6 countries of Western Balkans, 6, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, Albania, Serbia, Kosovo, and North Macedonia. We have signed 3 agreements in Berlin during the summit there for traveling with ID cards only, for recognition of higher qualification diplomas, and also for recognizing professional qualifications in certain professions. So in this way, Berlin process is the platform to bring all of the countries closer to European Union, which I believe is the most important political project and historical process of peace and prosperity since the Second World War, which must be defended, protected, and nurtured. We want to join EU not only to benefit, but also to contribute. People are our driving force, and in addition to this, it is important to note that Kosovo and Serbia are engaged in a process of normalizing relations by the means of mutual recognition, but also always helping the process of integration into European Union. We also want to join NATO, and we are going to participate in this spring in the largest NATO military enterprise for the security of the continent called Defender Europe 23. Agriculture, education, healthcare, and defense are 4 sectors in which I have allocated the largest amount of annual state budget ever. So we are optimistic about the future. We want to cooperate for peace, and we believe that democracy is not just an instrument to get elected in power, but also a value in which we should adhere every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister Kurti, for this very informative presentation of your country, and we wish you successful and peaceful negotiations between Kosovo and Serbia. Our next speaker will be His Excellency Alfred Moisiu, the former President of Albania. After establishing the Albanian North Atlantic Association in 1994, President Moisiu guided Albania's integration into NATO. He served as President of Albania from 2002 to 2007, and during his presidency, he strove to develop regional peace initiatives and is today a highly respected figure in his country. In 2019, he was appointed as chairman of UPF Summit Council for Peace in the Balkans. President Moisiu, the floor is yours. He will speak in Albanian language. There will be translation. Please use the equipment. There will be translation in English.
Your Excellencies, dear participants, dear friends and ambassadors for peace, in all our meetings organized by UPF, we have talked about the problems of security and peace in the world. But many times we also assumed. But this time we stand in front of a very difficult situation and also a very dangerous situation. In which even a sporadic event may lead to a mad collision of the world, which could be World War III. We should take into consideration that this war, I hope that it will not happen, but if it will happen, will be very different from the past wars. If in the Second World War had nearly 50 million casualties in 6 years, with today's lethal means available to the world's major powers, this amount of casualties might happen within a day. So it's a big difference. Therefore, Universal Peace Federation has always worked to keep peace by nature. I am not a pessimistic person, but I have used this language because in reality things are not going bad, but are going very, very worse. The war in Ukraine and the dangerous situations in the Taiwan region should concern us all. Those of us who currently, most of us are not in the power right now, we have a moral authority that our people gave to us, that our work gave to us. We should use it to influence as much as possible, to keep people and humanity far away from such dangerous situations and conflicts. If in the past the Universal Peace Federation has been investigating and emphasizing the importance of dialogue and peace in the world, currently is not just a matter of conjecture. The reality is that we are very close to a grim reality. Consequently, we all should be concerned, both of us who are in our retirement and those who currently hold the fate of peace in their hands. In Ukraine, now, the fire of war already has been ignited, and every day there are hundreds and thousands killed and injured, mass destructions, and most diverse misfortunes in the expense of millions of innocent people. In the Balkan region, where the flames of war have been swirling for a long time, they are currently becoming more real. Every day there is a risk for a war. If the government leaders do not take care of the situation. What I'm saying is not just an assumption, but is an acute and present danger. Despite the efforts of the European Union and the United States to prevent an aggression event at all costs in our region, unfortunately, the regional mentality of the leaders and the cooking that is being done behind the Russian policy makes this risk of war very real. In my strong opinion, which I have expressed before, that Western diplomacy should make it as clear as possible to Serbian president that the time has come for him to decide on which side he stands. Although this may be an old trend of Serbian politics, it can no longer continue like that. This should really be emphasized by the political leaders of EU and United States. No one should play with the life of the innocent people. There are a lot of problems for sure, but we need to resolve these problems. And we should be calm and responsible to resolve these problems. We in Albania, we have a saying, the friend you can choose. But the neighbor is given to you by God. So we should find the way of communication and resolving the problems within the neighbors. I cannot left without mentioning another danger that is looming on horizon and is very serious as a result of the Chinese policy towards Taiwan. That is even a more serious problem. Having a war there, it will be undoubtedly the end of this world. All the points that I mentioned are not new, and we have already told them and repeated them. And that's good. If we repeat certain things, nothing bad might come. On the contrary, we should be very careful for every step. It is a duty of all the peace-loving people and those who understand the magnitude of these possible dangers not to remain indifferent to what is approaching our world. In the northern part of the Pacific Ocean, from Taiwan to Sakhalin, that is from the Philippines, East China, through the Sea of Japan to the Sea of Okhotsk, there is a growing pressure. The world's most powerful navies, the US, China, Japan, Russia, as well as South Korea, North Korean navies, are holding massive military exercises. Especially North Korea fires its offshore ballistic missiles. So time is calling us all to do everything possible to prevent these things from happening. It is our urgent duty as ambassadors for peace to sharpen our vigilance and work, each one where he is and where he can, to prevent a human catastrophe. I take this opportunity that I have also my colleagues here, members of the Podgorica Club, to use all our regional authority and our prestige in our nations and in the region to prevent the Western Balkans from becoming a training ground for the warmongering tendencies of the great powers. We should do our duty until the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Moisiu. Thank you for always your dedication and seriousness for peace and reconciliation in the Balkan. We are very proud to work with you as UPF. Thank you. Our next speaker will be His Excellency Filip Vujanovic, who has been the President of Montenegro between 2003 and 2018. In 2019, President Vujanovic founded the Podgorica Club, a sui generis organization of former presidents and prime ministers of the Balkan region, an organization with which UPF is proud to cooperate and partner with to pursue peaceful resolution on the conflict in Balkan Peninsula. Your Excellency, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marian, for such an introduction. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ambassadors of peace and dear friends, I want to use the opportunity to congratulate the UPF leadership and organizing team on the successful organization of this summit, which promotes UPF's values of freedom, understanding, cooperation, and most essentially, peace. It means lasting and sustainable peace. It is our duty to contribute it, and I think that we are dedicated to do everything to have lasting peace in the Western Balkan region. It is necessary, and we are in Podgorica Club together to do everything to realize it in so visible way as President Monsiu and Dr. Marion have mentioned. Respecting the topic of this discussion, I would like to point out only three things. First, the Western Balkans region has had a turbulent history of conflict, violence, and instability. The disintegration of former Yugoslavia in the 1990s produced devastating wars with the loss of countless lives and displacement of hundreds of thousands. It was in last century, last war after two Balkanist wars, two world wars, and it was tragical century for the Western Balkan region. In that time, Montenegro saved peace by accepting numerous refugees and displaced people. We are so proud of it. It was, and it is, one of the reasons for a good relationship with all the neighboring countries. We are so proud not to have open issues with neighboring countries. We have only open room for cooperation. And concerning it, Montenegro is a good example, and we are dedicated to continue it and to contribute better and stable situation in our region. Second, after such a tragic time, Montenegro succeeded in realizing the most significant historical achievements. Montenegro democratically restored its state's independence, became a member of NATO and leader in the European Union integration process. We succeeded in closing all chapters and temporarily closed 3 chapters, and we are ready to continue closing of other chapters. And I should say, or have to say, that we are surprised that the European Union practically have a very slow enlargement procedure. We estimated that that part of policy of the European Union is the most important part of European Union and successful policy of European Union, and Montenegro is ready to work and to accelerate our activities and to be in situation to show that Montenegro is a good example concerning enlargement of the European Union. It is necessary to have the Western Balkans in the European Union if the European Union has to be a good competitor in global level. Concerning the European Union integration is a very important process, and I think that fatigue of enlargement is a great mistake because it is necessary to accelerate our activities concerning European Union integration. And third, the current sensitive internal, regional, and international situation in Europe which is burdened by Russian aggression on Ukraine, Montenegro is strongly dedicated to affirm values of peace, stability, and prosperity. All of these values should be and must be implemented through dialogue, compromise, and common interests of citizens of all countries of the Western Balkan and region as a whole. We are dedicated to respect the Berlin process within the European Union accession. It is necessary to be together, and it is necessary to realize in the world the possibility to have and to realize European standards. It is our great task, and we are ready to work together concerning Berlin process interests. This approach and those principles should be used to solve the biggest unsolved issue of the Western Balkan, issue of the relationship between Serbia and Kosovo. Montenegro is a good neighbor of both countries, and our state policy never suggests anything. We only wish Serbia and Kosovo to solve it as soon as possible. Encouraging dialogue, mediating by the European Union, Montenegro was and still is satisfied that both sides are ready to accept and implement the European Union's proposals, knowing that it is significant for both states and the Western Balkan region. I think that it is so important, mentioned by Prime Minister Kurti, that we are ready to implement Berlin process activities in economic area and to be in a situation to realize common regional trade area. It is very significant to have better atmosphere in economic area in our region and to affirm all countries concerning our economic needs. Let me conclude with a statement that promoting a world culture of peace and emphasizing dialogue, cooperation and respect for human rights is essential. This culture of peace should be grounded in the principles of UN Charter and the rule of law. These are the principles of UPF strongly advocates, and I sincerely supported them. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, President Vujanovic. Thank you for sharing your vision, actually your vision of establishing the Podgorica Club in 2019, at the time when UPF was establishing the Summit Council for Peace, tells us that it's important for us to collaborate together. Thank you very much. Let's go then to our next speaker. That will be His Excellency Mladen Ivanic, the former president of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Dr. Ivanic served as a Prime Minister of the Republic of Srpska from 2001 to 2003, then as Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bosnia and Herzegovina in 2014. He was elected as member of the presidency and served as chairman of the presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina from 2016 to 2017. Your Excellency, the floor is yours. Thank you for coming.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it's a really privilege to be today here and to speak, and I am very thankful to the Universal Peace Federation and also Podgorica Club to have this opportunity. Former presidents have a lot of disadvantages because they are not so significant like they were before, but they have one big privilege. They can finally speak honestly. So, without thinking, will they be re-elected or not? And now we have this subject, which is, let's say, what is going on in Europe, Southeastern Europe, and nobody can find any answer without mentioning Ukrainian war. And where we are now. Now, peace, if you speak of peace, if you use the word peace, speaking about the Ukrainian, a lot of people will say, oh, he's pro-Russian. So peace is almost forbidden word in the current situation. Just to know very clearly, what Russia did is completely unacceptable. This is against any logic of the international order. But doesn't mean that we cannot speak about the peace, even in Ukraine now. And this is a big, big, big challenge. Why? That reminds me of the situation which we have had in Bosnia and Herzegovina before the war. Before the war, if someone speak about the peace, compromise, at that time, it was seen like a treaty of its own people. It was almost excluded because everybody believed we can win. We can achieve our main goals. We will be the winners. So whoever is for the compromise is against my people, my group. I was among a very rare group of the people who said we need a peace even at that time. It didn't work. 4 years later, after 100,000 killed, at least, killed people, after few hundreds wounded, after almost half of the people, which was half of the whole population which was displaced, they said, finally, and we agreed, agreement which is more or less the same like it was on the table at the beginning of the war. Because in these wars there are no winners. I can't remember any big war where there was a final winner. And I hope that we will not be faced with that war in these years. If that approach will be applied in Ukraine, that will mean that they will sit at the table after 5 million people will be killed. Because if I compare population of Bosnia with the number of the victims, and if I compare the number of the population there and potential number of the victims, they will sit after 5 million people will be killed. Why not even these days? Doesn't mean that we will accept reality. Doesn't mean that we will accept aggression like a way how this will work. But simply to prevent that the people are dying every day, even as long as we speak, and at least hundreds, if not thousands, fathers, brothers, sons will be killed there. So I think that these messages are very significant, and it's easy to stay with the principles from the nice place, nice rooms, and without thinking what is going on really on the field there. So hope that you will not misunderstand me. So, as I said, there are other tools how you can send to the part which is responsible for everything, and I think especially Russia. It is, but doesn't mean that you cannot speak about the peace and the way. Let's start to do that. We will never accept what you did, but let's start to do that. And another very significant lessons learned in the Western Balkans is, especially the big powers, they have to stick to the principles. And they have to apply the principles in every case, not to find any excuse, because any different approach will be misused in the future by some sides. And I will stop here in order to give the other members a chance to say. But that was my message. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Ivanic. You gave a short speech, but very refreshing and enlightening. Thank you very much. Then we have more time afterwards for questions. So for our next speaker, I will invite Dr. Werner Fasselabend. Dr. Werner Fasselabend is the former Austrian Minister of Defense in Austria. He's also a former president of the Austrian Parliament. Today, as president of the Austrian Institute for European and Security Policy, Dr. Fasselabend is actively engaged in research and consultation on world affairs, and many times he honored our UPF conferences with his presence, and we're always happy to have him with us. The floor is yours, Dr. Fasselabend.
Thank you very much, Jacques Marian. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, It's a great pleasure for me to have the opportunity to talk about a subject that has been occupying myself not only for years but for decades. And I just want to try to explain why. I became defense minister in December 1990. And before I swore my oath, I gave a short paper just with a few words to my future chief of cabinet in order that they would prepare in the first week presentations what were the preparations of my ministry. And at the top of the list was preparations in Austria for a crisis in Yugoslavia. And I did that before I had any information from the intelligence of my country or whatever, just due to my personal experience, as so often I had spent my vacation in Yugoslavia. I went through Slovenia and Croatia and Bosnia and Serbia. I talked to people, and when I came back, I had the strong feeling that somebody was going on, that a crisis would come. Of course, I could not define it or whatever, but you could feel that the crisis would come. And the lesson I learned was that although many people think that I have a very logically thinking mind, it is not enough just to make an analysis with your logical mind, but also try to sense a situation. Why? Because in politics, it's not only interests that are the motor of developments. Very often, it is sentiments, it is hopes and fears, it is dreams, it is visions. And insofar, when you try to go to the solution of a problem, you always have also to try not only to make a logical analysis, but also try to go into the depth, into the sentiments, what has happened. Because if you look now to the situation in the Western Balkans, you could say, the situation is practically absolutely clear. The 6 Western Balkan countries are surrounded by European Union, only by European Union. It is Croatia, and you also could say Slovenia, it is Hungary, it is Romania, it is Bulgaria, it is Greece. But still it is not possible to speed up this process in order to reunite or to unite the Western Balkans with the EU. Why? I have few problems left, and because I want to call him my friend Ivanic, said we should speak out very clearly and openly without any reserves, and I do it. Of course, there are some rests, and the biggest problems we do have now, certainly, is the question between Serbia and Kosovo, recognition of Kosovo on the one hand. On the other hand, this lasting challenge of Bosnia, which is more or less a country divided, really heavily damaged by the civil war, and where 3 ethnicities are living together, or rather, let me say, next to each other within one country, where you even have 2 political entities, Republika Srpska, and on the other hand, this combination of Croats and Bosniaks. Okay, so what could we do? What are the reasons? I mean, if I just look to the statistics, I have to say, everybody should have an interest, a strong interest in the Western Balkans to join EU. Because round about 90% of all the exports of the region go into EU, and 90% of all the imports are coming from EU. And the same is with direct investment. Insofar from economy, the situation is absolutely clear. And no other country, whether this is Russia or China or Turkey, really does have a similar position. Insofar, also the decision should be clear. But still, it is extremely difficult to find solutions, as we heard. I mean, there are ongoing processes in Brussels between Serbia and Kosovo, but extremely hard. Why? Yeah, because we cannot only look at the rational side, but also we have to look to the emotional side. And if I look to the emotional side, of course, there is quite some hesitance, especially in Serbia or in Serbian-speaking populations versus EU, Western world. There are many links also to Russia. Why? There are historic reasons. Russia used to be the big protector in history, of course, no question, because this part, or biggest part, did belong to the Ottoman Empire. There are strong cultural links. If you look at, okay, they have the same Orthodox religion, more or less the same scripture, the same writing, and many other things more. But this is not everything. There's also, of course, the experience not so long ago, but during more or less the situation in Kosovo, when there was a bombardment of Belgrade, there was a bombardment in order to bring Milosevic to the point that he would stop the war. This was the Western side. Okay. And of course, people have this experience and therefore do not trust. And this intervention that went on, that NATO troops tried to protect the population in Kosovo, of course, was also not only regarded as a humanitarian intervention, as it was seen, but from the other side also as an incorrect intervention against international law. So you can, of course, discuss many things. But this is not everything. There's a fourth factor that I see. And the fourth factor that I see is that there is still quite some influence from Russian side in order more or less to make people, Serbian people, hesitant against full integration with EU. I do not talk about NATO at all. And this is a point where I think we have to work on. We have to work on, we cannot work on history, but we can talk about it. We can try to explain it, but this is probably also just the rational level. We can talk about cultural differences, okay. But it certainly will be necessary to have an open dialogue about what happened in the 90s, what happened when there was humanitarian intervention, when there was the bombardment, and so on. And there has also to be an open discussion and dialogue about the situation, that there are still not only prominent leaders, but also media that do not try to go into the right direction, let me call it this way, but just follow, in this case, Russian interests. I just want to mention one thing. When the war in Ukraine started, there was a big media in Serbia that opened with Ukraine starts aggression against Russia. And many people obviously are believing such things or looking at that. And this is the point where we have to be open, also to speak openly, not only with the politicians, but also have public discussions with the civil society. And this could be the reason in order to go a step further. Why is it so important? Because now, after the war with Ukraine, or between Ukraine and Russia, let me say it this way, the situation will be even more difficult for the Western Balkan countries in their relationship with Russia. Of course, because there will be sanctions for the next decade, maybe 15 years or whatever. And insofar, the links will be even more, links between Western Balkan countries and the EU will be even more important for the development. Why? Clearly because this is a question of surviving. Very often I have said, you also have to look at, in this conflict, to the nationalisms that do exist. Strong Serbian nationalism, strong Albanian nationalism. I do not want to go into the depth, but you have to be aware that this is existing. But you also have to be aware that you only can live together in the bigger union. Then you can unite your nation. Also the minorities in the other entities. This is the only reason that you can do. Otherwise, you never will be able, but on the contrary, both sides will lose their strength. What do I mean? Serbia is confronted with the biggest loss of population than any other state has all over Europe. It will lose its strength, the historic strength it had at Balkans. And a similar situation we can see also at the Albanian side. And insofar, there will be no other solution than sit together, have not only a dialogue, but really go into the depths of the problem, speak it out openly, clearly, and try to find a solution between Western Balkans and European Union. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fasalabunt. We always appreciate your broad insights and wisdom. Thank you very much. Our next speaker will be His Excellency Zlatko Lagumdzija, who served as the fourth chairman of the Council of Ministers of Bosnia and Herzegovina from 2001 to 2002. He also served twice as Minister of Foreign Affairs in his country. He was also for 17 years the president of the Social Democratic Party of his country. Prime Minister, you have the floor. Welcome to the podium.
Thank you, Monsieur Marion. When you were setting the stage, you had a problem how to put us in what order, and we asked him not to put President Ivanic and myself one after another, because, I mean, two Bosnians one after another are maybe too much. But then we couldn't escape out of that trap, because after me, President of Serbia, Boris Tadic, is going to come. And of course, Bosnia and Serbia are two different countries, regardless of what they think about it. But he's also Bosnian because he was born in Sarajevo just like I did. So we exported presidents in different countries as Bosnians, so that's how we had President Tadic being president of Serbia, but it's a long story. I will not repeat what President Vujanovic was talking about, because he was very clear about the general dynamic in Bosnia and Herzegovina and in the region. Of course, I will not be repeating what Mr. Ivanic was saying, but I want you to know one thing. We are coming from the same country, we are of different ethnic and religious background, and I'm not going to say anything different that he was saying. So that's why it will be much easier for me to say something. Of course, Werner, when I see you, you remind me of the fact, just as you mentioned, that we were, as a country, sometime under Ottoman Empire. That is correct. Bosnia and Herzegovina is a very unusual place, like every place in the world is an unusual one. But we lived for centuries under Ottoman Empire. That was definitely not democracy. Then we lived under Austro-Hungarian Empire, which Minister forgot. And we also lived as people of different ethnicities, religions, and cultures. Then we lived in a kingdom of Yugoslavia. That was not a role model of democracy, of course. Then we lived under Hitler regime of independent state, of puppet state of Croatia, which was also not role model of democracy. Then we lived under Tito's time, which was not known as role model of democracy. But all that time, we lived as a people of different ethnicities and religions who were sharing our cultures, our identities. And we were having our differences as our asset, not as our liability. So we lived in those non-democratic and occupation regimes as a shared society. So we have a long tradition and history of how to live together. Now let me go back to the original topic, the global of contemporary challenges of global order, and of course towards the world culture of peace with focus on Europe. I will say a few things about it. I'm sure you're familiar, especially people here in Korea, about Bulletin of Atomic Scientists back in 1947 created something which was called Doomsday Clock. And the Doomsday Clock was maintained since 1947, and at that time it was set up 7 minutes to midnight, back in 47. Golden age was in 1992, when a war in my country started. But globally, that was nirvana. That was the best part, because at that time, there was record of 17 minutes to midnight in 1992. Today, it is the lowest peak ever. Being closer to midnight than back in 1953. Why 1953 I'm mentioning? Because until these days, 1953 was seen as a time when the USA and USSR started testing hydrogen bombs. And just before Korean Peninsula War ended, clock stopped at 2 minutes to midnight. 2 minutes to midnight. It was moved further 100 seconds before midnight in January 2020. Based on increased threats of global stability posed by a nuclear blunder, exacerbated by the rate of climate change. Latest artificial intelligence and cyber development, as well as COVID, were not taken into account at that time. But January 9, 2023, just 4 or 5 months ago, moved to 90 seconds to midnight, closer to midnight ever. The closest ever. Ukrainian is getting in a second year of war. European security being threatened. I'm just giving some notes of explanation why it was set up to 90 seconds to midnight. Russia threats to use nuclear weapons, but 4 major threats were identified. Nuclear risk, climate change, biological threats. We heard about Secretary Pompeo telling us a little bit about it, just reminding us. And disruptive technology is the 4th one, artificial intelligence in general. So those 4 doomsday threats are growing, and the question is there a pilot in the plane? Is there a pilot in the plane, at least along those 4 challenges? First, nuclear threat. We have something which is called the International Atomic Energy Agency, set up in 1957. So there is some kind of pilot there. When it comes to climate change, we have SDGs, we have Paris Agreement, we have COP27 already was set up, and we have some kind of UN Framework Convention of Climate Change. When it comes to pandemic, we have WHO, we have UNAIDS, and so on and so on. So those 3 things. When it comes to the artificial intelligence, there is no pilot in the plane. There is no International Artificial Intelligence Agency or whatever, which is similar to AI. I just want to mention that 2 or 3 days ago, Secretary General Guterres just clearly set up the problem that we have to be thinking about artificial intelligence threats more and more, especially because one of the founding fathers in Google, who was dealing with AI, decided to quit and to say to the world that we are entering into the no one's land, in twilight zone, call it however you want to. So I think that we are living in a time of broken multilateralism, along most of the previously mentioned, those doomsday clock sets. Now, there is definitely no pilot in the plane when it comes to technology, but those others are there. Now, tell me about Europe. Let me tell you something about Europe. When we talk about this doomsday clock for set threats from European perspective, or EU perspective, we should be trying to reach out to Europe or European political community. I'm purposely talking about European political community, hosts 44 countries, 27 EU countries, 6 Balkan countries, UK, Switzerland, Ukraine, Moldova, altogether 44. Went onto the European Council and European Commission presidency for the first time in Prague in October last year. And it is envisioned as an intergovernmental forum for heads of states and governments similar to G7 or G20. Since the aim of EPC is to provide policy coordination platform for European countries across the continent to foster political dialogue and cooperation in order to address issues of common interest, strengthening the security, stability and prosperity of European continent, not European Union, but European continent. From Ottoman Empire, Austro-Hungarian Empire to European Union. The links between EU member states and non-EU member states who share the same European values. Then the peace and the future of truly European Green Deal, for example, European Economic Community, hopefully, that is larger than today's European Union, European Health Union, digital transformation with focus on artificial intelligence, as well as overall interconnectivity, should be a perfect case of European shared journey to the next phase of European Union enlargement as the biggest peace project in modern history. So I think this is a proper place to remind that when we talk about Europe in the context of global peace. I think if EU wants to be a sustainable peace-building leader, by example, and join US and Indo-Pacific democracies that we heard this morning very eloquently about, and other pillar stakeholders as a global player and creator, then European Union have to be pioneer in sustainable development and integration of broader Europe than only European Union is today. I think it is one of the very important messages for us who are coming from Western Balkan. I'll end with this. 90 years ago, Einstein wrote to Freud a letter in 1932. And he asked him, is there any way of delivering mankind from menace of the war? It is common knowledge that with advance of modern science, can you imagine 1932? He was threatened by modern science. This issue has come to mean a matter of life and death of civilization, as we know it. Nevertheless, for all the real disputes, every attempt to its solution has ended in lamentable breakdown. The final conclusion of their one-year letter exchanges of Freud and Einstein was that there are two options. One option is that there is one superpower that everyone is afraid of. And everyone is peaceful because superpower is saying, basta, no more, no war. The problem is that there is always some rising power who wants to become a superpower, and the only one. So they concluded that that's maybe not so realistic scenario. It would function if it would function, but it won't function. And they concluded that the only another alternative is that there is global cooperation, starting from the regional one to the global one, that nations are concluding and competing. I'm concluding with this. I think that today for Western Balkan and for Europe, as well as for global modern governance and peace, I think that it is good to remind us something which is elements of model of mutual reinforcement and connectivity in between the type of governance and peace. And since we had very many Americans today, I will paraphrase 160 years old Lincoln words at the Gettysburg Address. What we need is governance and peace united in diversities of the people. Governance and peace united in diversity by the people. And 5 more seconds. Governance and peace united in diversity for the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Lagumdzija. Thank you for your passion and energy. And as you become, I heard you're becoming the next ambassador of Bosnia to the UN, you will bring a great spirit to the United Nations. I think they need that. Thank you very much. Our final speaker, and not the least, will be His Excellency Boris Tadic from Serbia. His Excellency Tadic served as the 3rd president of Serbia between 2004 and 2012, President Tadic held various ministerial positions in the government of his country, and he is the recipient of numerous awards, including the European Medal of Tolerance by the European Council on Tolerance and Reconciliation. President Tadic, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Marion. I'm really very honored to have opportunity to express my thoughts, my views regarding European security, European future in the context of the global conflict. Situation is totally unpredictable in which we are finding ourselves today. Unfortunately, I have to say, situation is going to be even more unpredictable in the future. No one is able to say, to explain what is going to be with us, with the world, with the ordinary people in the future, because conflicts are becoming even more harder, and many unsolvable problems and disputes are occupying all of us all around the world. Europe is our continent. We are living in Europe. This is an old continent, old culture, but many diversities you can find in Europe. In that respect, you can find many different identities. I fully agree with the former Minister of Defense of Austria, Mr. Fastleben, who have said that we are facing nowadays with two different approaches. One is rational, one is emotional. But in the middle of those two approaches, we have issue of identity, which is at the same time very rational and very emotional. Issue of identity is lying in the foundation of many disputes all around the world, especially in the European Union. Many wars that happened in Europe were because of not respecting different identities. Even today, we are facing with such problem in Europe, even though European Union is globally thinking one of the biggest achievements in terms of peace and in terms of solving such a difficult and very sensitive problem. And this is why, as a president of Serbia, as before that the Minister of Defense and Minister of Telecommunication, I was always intending to bring my country in European Union. Not only Serbia, but whole region of the Western Balkans, which was traditionally very soft stomach of European security. We are usually saying that Western Balkans can produce more history than we can consume, and which is bringing many tensions, not only in our corner of Europe, but elsewhere. But we can see that there are many soft stomachs of the security all around the world. In accordance with Zbigniew Brzezinski main theory, that was Central Asia. Nowadays we see this is South China Sea. We see many tensions between two Koreas. We see many tensions not only in Atlantic area, but also right now in Pacific. Things are changing, becoming more and more unpredictable. I have to say that many times when I was appearing on different forums all around the world in the past few years, I was facing with the fact that even great politicians, big analysts, weren't able to predict political processes. I remember when I was participating on some advisory board of one international bank with the big players, Romano Prodi, Javier Solana, Igor Ivanov, and Joschka Fischer. No one was predicting the Brexit in Great Britain. That happened only a few months before referendum in Great Britain. A few months after that, I was in the United States. That was just before elections between Trump and Hillary Clinton. Only one person among the American institutions have said Trump is going to win. Only one person. We were together in New York talking about that, what is going to be with the United States, and Trump won. I'm asking myself today, what we cannot predict today? What is going to be tomorrow, next year with us? A year before war happened between Russia and Ukraine, that horrible aggression of Russia against Ukraine, no one was predicting that war. Some people have been explaining that Russia is planning to do something like that, but majority in the international community ignored that fact. What is crystal clear, no one was trying to prevent that war. Even those people who have said the war is maybe coming, they didn't try to prevent war, and war came overnight. And nowadays, this is second year we are facing with a war which is triggering many, many problems all around the world. We are living in an interconnected world. We are living like, we can compare the world with the human body. Everything what is happening in one cell in the human body have an impact on the other cell. Everything what is happening in Ukraine is creating impact in South China Sea. We have a problem because we cannot isolate one aggression, one war from other potential aggressions. In that respect, Europe is not secure anymore, even though we are intending to become member state of European Union, which I'm going to repeat is the greatest achievement in terms of peace in the history of the world. European Union is not secure anymore. European Union is totally involved in a war in Ukraine, which is war against Russia and Ukraine. European Union is going to pay extremely high price because of that kind of involvement. European Union is going to be one of the victims. Besides of Ukrainian people, Russian people, Europe is going to be victim of that war. I think that the main benefits from that war are going to have other global powers. This is United States and finally China. And in that respect, we can expect that the global situation and international community is going to look like something different in comparison with the world in which we've been living together until 2 years ago. What is going to be foundation of the new rules? I don't know. But I know that things are triggering each other in a very specific way, and whenever we are not focused on the problems we are facing with, we are paying extremely high price after a few years. Whenever we are not preventing new conflict, we are paying extremely high price. Last time when I was participating on this forum, I said that prevention of conflict is much more important than solution of conflict. Because whoever is preventing conflict is saving human lives. Whoever is preventing conflict is doing a lot in terms of peace in the future. Who is only focused on making solution on some conflict existing nowadays, he's doing extremely important work, extremely important thing, but this is not enough. Prevention of conflict is much more important in that respect. We've been living after Second World War under rules that are defined by a United Nations Charter that was after 1949. But now I'm coming to the issue of the Western Balkans, because Mr. Kurti was explaining his thoughts, and he has gone and he left this space. Unfortunately, he didn't wait to hear what someone from Serbia is going to react on his statements, because this is a conflict. This is not fair, I think. This is not fair. As a Democrat, I would always listen what President Kurti is going to say in that respect, because we have a totally different opinion. But I'm coming to that issue because we have a problem. And I'm going to explain to you how Kosovo issue was triggering even war in Ukraine. This is exactly how I'm explaining to you that whenever we are not focused on problem in 1 minute, in 1 moment, in 1 year, we are facing with, we are paying extremely high price after a few years. When Kosovo Albanians, provisional institutions, not legitimate institutions, has been declaring independence from Serbia, reaction of International Court of Justice, which we asked about their advisory opinion, was those institutions didn't have a right to declare really independence. Whatever they did, they didn't violate international law. That was a very strange decision, because that decision was making payment for new separatists all around the world. That exactly happened. South Ossetia after that, Abkhazia in Georgia, Crimea in Ukraine, Donbas in Ukraine. And that is exactly the first statement Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin has been delivering in his talks with the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Guterres, by saying, if that was possible with Kosovo, this is possible with Crimea, Donbas, Lugansk, and other regions in Ukraine. That happened. After some countries, almost half of the world, recognized immediately independence of Kosovo, I was pointing out my speech in the United Nations Security Council that the world, after this decision, is becoming more dangerous than before. And immediately after that, we had a war in Georgia, and nowadays we are facing with a war in Ukraine. And whoever is supporting partition of one country, which is a member state of United Nations, is a supporting war in Ukraine. And this is, for me, it's really ridiculous when I see some global power nowadays are trying to dismantle the fact that they supported Kosovo independence, which was, in fact, partition of my country, which was member state of United Nations in accordance with the charter that I mentioned from 1949. That was triggering, at the same time, partition of Ukraine. And nowadays, I see controversy in the policy of the Western countries. They, at the same time, supported partition of my country, Serbia, but nowadays they are totally against partition of Ukraine. You cannot have a double standard in the international arena. If you are having double standard, and especially if you are big power, you are not responsible for the future of the continent, like Europe, of the whole world. And nowadays we are facing with a problem. There are many, many Kosovos, there are many, many Lugansk and Crimeas and South Ossetias all around the world. Not only in Europe. Because of that, 5 countries of European Union didn't recognize Kosovo independence nowadays. Slovakia, Romania, Greece, Spain and other countries, but also more than majority of the global countries, member states of United Nations, didn't recognize Kosovo independence. But Serbia, nowadays, even though I'm totally opposing to Serbia government right now, is trying to have a principled position. Serbia is not recognizing partition of Ukraine. In every international initiatives in United Nations, Serbia was following agenda without recognition of partition of Ukraine. We are fully supporting territorial integrity of Ukraine. Unfortunately, Ukraine didn't support Serbia in the Council of Europe in the past few days regarding member state of Kosovo in Council of Europe. This is not in accordance with the principles and standards. I'm mentioning that because we have to take into consideration the fact that we have to keep principled position if we want to be respected in the world in the future. This is what I think about that. If I'm talking about partition of some countries, I'm really very much afraid about future of some countries in Africa, for example. There are many, many territorial disputes in Africa, even more than Europe, even more than Asia. You can see so many disputes and so many conflicts all around the world. Dear friends, I think this is a UPF conference about peace. This is a conference in which we can deliver our different thoughts, different views, because we are all very much focused on global peace, reconciliation and security. I was committing all my political life to the reconciliation, not only within Serbian society, but in our region. I was paying respect to the victims in Srebrenica, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, apologizing for the victims among the Bosniaks and Croats. I did it because I truly believed that honest approach is very important regarding our future. I was always working on reconciliation between Serbian and Albanians. As a young student, I was supporting the right of Albanian students in 1980s to ask for independence from Serbia within former Yugoslavia. But I didn't support that idea of independence. I was defending their rights because I truly believe that everyone has to be free to explain his thoughts and intentions. But we have to keep principled position and to think about outcome of our work and about our decisions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, President Tadic. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, your insights, and your heart as well. And truly we respect your perspective, and we are happy that in UPF we can bring people of all sides and of many perspectives together in the spirit of dialogue. We have only 5 minutes for questions. So, yes, just about 5 minutes. So if there are any questions, please keep your question short, 1 minute, and tell me who you address your question to. One of the panelists. They will stay there and they will respond from their seats. They do not need to come here to the podium. Any question to any of the panelists on many of these perspectives that were shared this afternoon? Okay, one question. Please bring the microphone quickly there. Thank you.
Heiner Hanschin, Switzerland. My question is actually to several of the speakers before. Prevention of further escalation and conflicts. And I think the presentation of former President Tadic was, I think, showing that point. Where do we go from here? Because I think also this morning's session showed that it can trigger all kinds of things. We have the war in Ukraine, and it could have been prevented. That's, I think, a real good point. But where do we go from here now in this, let's say, in the Balkan area, or in the greater European area? We're talking about peace and security in Europe. So I don't know who would like to take on this. Maybe President Vujanovic.
Okay, President Vujanovic, can you bring the microphone to President Vujanovic? Thank you.
I think that our only way is way to the European Union.
Closer, I think, just speak a bit closer.
It is necessary to be a member of the European Union, and as I have said, it is a great surprise that the European Union is fatigued concerning enlargement. It is absolutely a wrong decision, wrong activities, and they underestimated need of the Western Balkan countries to be part of the European Union. I think that is very hard to explain to our citizens what the reason is for fatigue of the European Union. We are fatigued for waiting. We are ready to do everything what is necessary to achieve standards of European Union. When we are in position to achieve it, what's the reason for waiting? And I think that it is necessary to be in the European Union, and it is precondition for stable region and for preventing of all challenges. Concerning it, it is very hard to explain our friends to Northern Macedonia what the reason was for waiting for cooperation and for accession process. In Albania too. And I think that such decision of the European Union is a very bad decision concerning the European Union, concerning the Western Balkan, concerning all countries in the Western Balkan. It is my answer.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, one more question, one last question. We're coming close to the end. Any question from the audience? Yes, okay, well. Okay.
Two from the same family. I wouldn't have raised my hand if anyone else had. But since we had no women speaking, I was wondering, among all of the male leaders who just spoke, and especially those who spoke about prevention, do you ever think about what a difference it could make if women were in leadership roles in your countries?
Okay, who wants to answer that about women leadership in the Balkan? Who will answer? Okay, Prime Minister Lagumdzija, please give the, yes.
Boris is actually among us, the one who always knows the best answers when it comes to women. But I will just, connecting what you said, I think you raised a very important question. I think that recent history is showing us in different parts of the world how the women, actually, that were leading their countries, were leading the countries the best way, much better than their colleagues in different parts of the world. You can take example of New Zealand, you can take example of Denmark, you can take example of Finland. I mean, I won't go further on. As a matter of fact, whatever case you take, there is no failure among the women leaders in the last 5-10 years. When it comes to men, there are a lot of failures. That's one thing. And going back to the first question, prevention, connecting what President Vujanovic said, I think it is very important for you people in the European Union to understand. I'm absolutely sure the best way to prevent the further mess in Europe is actually that we become like you, that you do not become like us. So in 2030, Western Balkan and European Union will be the same. We will look the same. Either you're going to be like us, or we are going to be like you. So the best way to do prevention is to share and extend the community based on the values that we all pray and preach and go for, which is Europe united in diversity.
Thank you. And that will be the final word for our session. Thank you very much. Please give a round of applause to all our panelists who share their perspective. 7 of them, we are grateful that you came today. And we are now having a break. There will be concurrent sessions at 4 o'clock. We have a 30-minute break. And there will be several sessions on UPF associations. So you can come once, some in this room and some in the other hall. And we will take a picture with the panelists. So please, I want to ask all the panelists to come on stage, please, for the group picture. Can you please come to the, and the séance is levée. Okay, please come to the stage, President Vujanovic, President Ivanic. Please come with their wives. Please come with your wife. Please come on the stage. Let's take a picture with your wives, who are also the leaders in the Balkan. Mrs. Moisiu, please come. President Tadic. Okay. Mrs. Moisiu, yes, please.
찍었어요. 배터리요. 두 칸, 세 칸 이렇게.
हेरिहाल्नु कस्तो रहेछ भनेर ओ माइ गॉड अनै रहेछ कस्तो लामो लामो है यो मान्छे मान्छे छ यो त भयो के बोल्ने सॉरी ठीक है फोटो है ले लिया थैंक यू सो मच
लो जी मैं बोलना कुछ है मैं आवाज नहीं आगे मुंह खोलने की आवाज आई है मुंह खोलने की आवाज आई तो मैं कहा
Karina, yeah. Yes, today is thank you.
Thank you.
मेरा फोन किसी को है मेरा ਉਹ ਪਿਆ ਸਰ ਚੁੱਕ ਕੇ ਲੈ ਜਾ ਕੋਈ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਸੀ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੀ ਫੋਨ ਮੈਂ ਖਿੱਚ ਗਈ ਆ ਜਾ ਜਾਂ ਸਿੰਗਲ ਆਲਸੋ single also.
Oh, I did.
Testing.
You're not available anymore. Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? It's okay? Okay?
Okay, that's great.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Only me. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be starting this session in 5 minutes, okay? Be sure to get your coffee and we'll start in 5 minutes. Thank you.
poussez.
Yeah, man. Muna sir.
보디빌더 김강민은 로이더 출신이고 약물을
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Why don't we take our seats, and if the staff back there can close the doors so it's a little quieter, we'll get started right away.
Aló, aló, aló.
All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to session number 7. This is one of the concurrent sessions today, and this group of gatherings is based on the associations of UPF. These were founded back in 2016, that's when it started, and that was with the media, the parliamentarians, the International Association of Parliamentarians for Peace. Soon after came the Interfaith Association, the International Association of Peace and Development. A couple years later, we launched, this was in 2020, the International Association for Media and Peace, and the International Association of Peace and Development, which is this group, along with, later on, an arts association and the International Association of Academics for Peace. Sometimes people laugh about the acronyms because when you see all the diagrams, all the logos up there, they look very similar. But what's really fascinating, having worked in this project for a couple of years, is to watch the growth of an interdisciplinary global set of networks of people like yourself in 190 countries
So, for example, when we're going to hear from some terrific media personalities today, in the International Media Association for Peace, we have journalists, publishers, editors, influencers, creatives, connected all over the world on all the continents. At one point when we did a database, it was over 4,000 media professionals who are concerned about peace. And so in some cases, we'll take content and ship it out through that network, and the aggregate reach of the video content gets up in the 2 billion range for real. That's an exciting example if you're in the journalism world. On the business side, we have luminaries and business executives all over the world that are concerned, entrepreneurs, business school professors, small and medium business folks, people in the corporate sector, and that's also a terrific network of people awakened in the business field of how the corporate sector can contribute to prosperity and peace. So it's a fascinating group. When you tie that together with parliamentarians, over 6,000 incumbent members of parliament, with heads of state, ISCP, International Security Council for Peace, and there you've got, as you've seen, hundreds of members of government who are elected officials at the highest level, prime minister and deputy prime minister, presidents, vice presidents. And on the arts side, some of the top artists in the world, the academic field, it becomes a very powerful cultural movement to affect change. So today we're going to hear from 9 experts, several on the media side, several on the business side. And to begin with, I'm so delighted to have my good friend, Mr. Poi Kia from Cambodia. He's a journalist. He's a president of the Club of Cambodian Journalists in Kyodo News. He's a correspondent with Kyodo News. Began his journalism career in '94 whilst continuing to practice as a journalist. He studied political science. He's been on several consecutive terms as board of directors of the Club of Cambodian Journalists. And that's the largest association of journalists and correspondents in the great country of Cambodia. So we're delighted to have you. Each speaker will have 5 minutes, maybe an extra minute or two, and then at the end we'll have some discourse with our audience. So please prepare your questions, take some notes, and we'll invite our Cambodian friend to come to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. It's my privilege to be here today. And over the past 2 days, I heard a lot of peace had been exchanged by the previous speakers from many sessions. Let me begin by sharing my own working experience as a war and peace journalism in my country. You know, the 2 years after I was born, then the coup d'etat took place in my country in 1970. And then the war in Vietnam expanded to Cambodia in 1970s, and then continued and came up with the Khmer Rouge, came to power from 1975 to 1979, during which it was called like the killing field. So I believe that some of you might have heard or watched the killing fields. The Killing Field was written basically by a former New York Times journalist, Sidney Skanberg, that he covered the civil war in Cambodia. And then he wrote the stories and later on made into a movie, and it was released in 1985. It won Oscar Award. That's the movie about. Because of the civil war in Cambodia that lasted for decades, I missed my education for 6 years until I started my primary school. Grade 1, I started when I was 12 years old. So I missed 6 years. I could not start education at all. Then even after I joined journalism in 1994, the war continued. The war went on until 1998, that the war was ended through a win-win policy. So in short, almost half of my life that I experienced with war in my country. And now Cambodia, with a 17 million population, we have more than 1,000 registered media establishments. And the rise of the media reflects the openness, the freedom of expressions. With this large number, the people have access to information, wider range to information, and the hunt for information through digital and traditional media. Again, over the past 2 days, again, like peace, peace, and peace, repeatedly said, while the conflicts, the confrontations, war of words have been exchanged between country and countries, especially on the Korean Peninsula, on Taiwan Straits, on South China Sea, and of course, our war in Ukraine with Russia continue. On the other hand, on the contrary, peace, while Cambodia enjoyed peace for 25 years, the words, thanks to peace, are now seen and can be read almost everywhere in Cambodia, So this is a peace culture, and Cambodian stakeholders, including journalists, are ready to share peace journalism. Of course, it's very, this is the first session that we talk deeply on journalism relating to the peace and war. So, but since the time, is very limited, I could not go on because my friend Thomas said that we have only 5 minutes. So I would like to conclude and probably would wait for the questions later. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You actually came in under 5 minutes. You could have spoke a little longer. Please feel free, speakers. I take 5 to 7 minutes. We're not that rushed, okay? Thank you again. And I know there's a lot of work going on in Cambodia with the Asian Values Institute and other programs, so we're excited to see what comes out of that. Our next speaker is from the beautiful country of Nepal. And she is a Nepali born in Lalitpur. Apart from being the newly appointed first vice president of the Nepal-Philippines Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and president, I'm so sorry, the first president of the Nepal-Philippines Chamber of Commerce and Industry. She's also the director of the Subharamama Holdings and Developers Limited, and the first secretary of FWION, life member of SAARC Chamber of Commerce and Industries, the People Welfare Media Concern, and most importantly, the publisher of national daily, The Republic Media. And we're so happy to have her. Her publication is well known, English and Nepali language. A real veteran of the UPF circles, and it's my pleasure to ask Mrs. Shova Gyawalali to come to the stage. Thank you. Let's welcome her.
Thank you so much, respected moderator. Honorable Eknath Sir, dear Excellency, distinguished guest, respected valuable panelists, ladies and gentlemen, media, and also my international friends. Good afternoon and namaste. This is Shobha Gewali from Nepal. It is an honor to address this Peace Summit 2023. I am excited to have the opportunity to be here with esteemed participants to engage in meaningful dialogues and exchange ideas on the role of media and the economy. Distinguished guests, firstly, I would like to acknowledge IMAP, International Media Association for Peace, for bringing together professionals and experts to share their knowledge on this topic. I would also like to recognize the presence of Chairman Mr. Thompson McDavid. Hello, sir. Good afternoon again. Today, we live in a world facing unprecedented challenges, ranging from the COVID-19 pandemic to economic inequality, political polarization, and climate change. Therefore, there is a need to promote dialogue, cooperation, and understanding among nations, cultures, and peoples. This is why media and the economy have a critical role to play in promoting a culture peace worldwide. Dear guests, let me begin with the role of media. In today's interconnected world, the media has an enormous influence on shaping public opinion and perceptions. Depending on how the media portrays different communities, cultures, and nations, it can either promote peace or perpetuate conflict. For instance, by showcasing stories of people and communities that are working to build bridges across the culture and national boundaries, like sharing True Mother's life and her messages, highlighting the commonalities that bind us together, the true philosophy, peace values, and virtue. Media can promote understanding. The media can also play a vital role in exposing injustice, which are often the root cause of conflict. Additionally, media can promote peace by facilitating intercultural and interfaith dialogue. By providing platform for people to engage in respectful and constructive dialogue, such as this conference, the media can foster greater appreciation of our shared humanity. Dear guests, now let me turn to the role of the economy. The economy can promote peace by providing economic opportunity for all. When people have access to decent work, education, healthcare, and other basic needs, they are less likely to be lured into the extremist ideologies or engage in criminal activities. This is why we need an economy that promotes inclusive growth and provides opportunity for marginalized communities and regions. Again, I want to repeat this. This is why we need an economy that promotes inclusive growth and provides opportunity for marginalized communities and regions. The economy can also promote peace by prioritizing sustainable development. In conclusion, outcome, building a culture of peace worldwide requires a collective effort from all of us. the media, and the economy have critical roles to play in promoting peace, tolerance, and understanding. We need media that is committed to promoting stories of peace and understanding, and an economy that promotes economic opportunities for all while respecting the limits of our planet. Let's work together to build a culture of peace that embraces our diversity and enriches our common humanity. At the end, I would like to express my gratitude to respected Mother Moon and UPF, who has given this platform for me. Thank you, Mother Moon. Thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you so much.
I understand we have a video ready, so I am going to ask our technical crew, are you ready to roll the video on Brazil? Just hold 1 second while I introduce Dr. Sergio Redou, currently the president of the Sao Paulo Press Association, Casa do Jornalista de Sao Paulo. He also served as the vice president of the National Press Federation with an educational background in the area of law, a bachelor's degree in legal and social services. Dr. Redou has been a member of the board of directors of the ABCOM Institute, the Brazilian Association of Community Channels, which is made up of 127 television channels covering the Brazilian capital. It's absolutely fascinating to me to think he is one of our top associates for IMAP in the nation of Brazil, touches the entire continent of South America, and like many of you, has access to tens of millions of people in his audience to carry this message of peace. And so we're going to roll the video, and I want to give a heads up to my colleague Guy Taylor of the Washington Times. We're going to have you come next because we're doing the media team first, and then we'll bring the business leaders up. So tee it up. Let's go ahead and show the video, please.
Imenso prazer e muita honra
It is my
na
pleasure
qualidade de
and honor
presidente
as
da Associação Paulista de Imprensa que está comemorando 90 anos de independência
of
pela
dedication to the
luta
freedoms of expression,
intransigente das
communication, and
liberdades
social
da
information.
expressão, da comunicação e da informação social. E também na
I'm
qualidade
also
de
the Vice
vice-presidente
President
da
of the
Federação
National Press
Nacional de
Federation
Imprensa
here in Brazil.
aqui no Brasil. Eu quero
I would
externar
like
os
to
meus
express my
cumprimentos pelo
congratulations
convite
for
de
the
estar
invitation to
participando
participate
da Cúpula
in
da
the
Paz
Peace Summit
2023,
2023,
que está ocorrendo agora
which is
em
taking
Seul,
place in Seoul,
capital da
South
Coreia do
Korea,
Sul, sob o tema
under the theme
Desafios
of Contemporary
Contemporâneos
Challenges
à Ordem
to
Global
Global
rumo a uma
Order
cultura
towards a
mundial da
world
paz.
culture of
E esta
peace.
sessão do
The
IMAP,
session of
o papel da
IMAP
Associação da
on the
Mídia
role of the
Internacional
International Media
para a criação da
Association
cultura da paz.
in creating a culture of peace is
Reconheço
extremely
neste
timely
momento
and relevant,
que é de
and I'm
extrema
grateful for the opportunity to
oportunidade
be here.
para todo o mundo de hoje, tema tão relevante como este abordado. Também quero entender,
I would also like
neste momento,
to
a
express in this
oportunidade
moment
de
my
agradecer e
appreciation
estender os meus
to
cumprimentos à
Dr.
doutora Hak
Hak
Jahan
Jahan
Moon,
Moon,
nossa
our
presidente
president of
da UPF
UPF
e a mãe da
and the
paz,
mother of peace,
pelo seu incansável
for her
trabalho
tireless
em
work
prol da visão, da interdependência, da prosperidade mútua e dos valores
and universal
universais
values
compartilhados há mais de meio
shared for over half a century throughout the world. As a man of the media, I observed people of great influence in the world, and I can say with absolute conviction that Reverend Moon was a man who made a mark in human history through his fight against communism and for faith, with God always being his greatest motivation. This World Media Conference is of extraordinary relevance in a time when values are being boycotted and buried by materialism and ideological opportunism with prefabricated narratives and communist social biases, which we cannot support. Instead, we must support the UPF for this opportunity and initiative that the Peace Summit 2023 brings to each of us to discuss such important and relevant topics. I congratulate all the participants gathered at this global event, and once again wish Dr. Hag Jae-han-moon a happy birthday, and that may God bless Dr. Hag Jae-han-moon and bring you harmony, health, love, and prosperity. May God bless us all as we unite to uplift our Creator Happiness to all.
Thank you very much. Our next presenter is from Washington, D.C., a colleague of mine at the Washington Times, a distinguished career in the media, a variety of different companies, and I'm going to ask him to introduce himself. But Guy Taylor is the head of our international desk, the foreign desk of the Washington Times. I know he's traveled to dozens and dozens of countries in the region. And so I'm going to invite Guy Taylor to the podium to share his views of the role of media in changing the world. Go ahead, Guy.
Sure, yeah. Wow, thank you so much. Again, I was up here yesterday and I have this problem of being just a little bit taller than the average person. So, thank you to the Universal Peace Federation. Tom, thanks for asking me to up here. I've known Tom for 23 years. I met him 23 years ago. Yeah, thanks. And he's been a mentor and a friend and a colleague for a long time. So it's really fun to be able to contribute. I'll try to go slowly and quickly so we can move through. And I know that translators don't have my remarks because I like to speak off the cuff. I worked in. I began pursuing journalism for a little community newspaper, first in Massachusetts in the northeast of the United States, and then I followed my future wife to Washington, D.C. and began working in community news, very local news there. And I had a stint at Washington Times newspaper and quickly found myself traveling to the Middle East to embed with the American military invading Iraq. I later traveled all over the Middle East. I worked with the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting. I left the Washington Times for a while. I began traveling in Latin America. I just met a friend here from Panama, spent some time there, Venezuela, back to the Middle East. Eventually, I came back to the Washington Times in a more senior role and began traveling and reporting for the Times, spending a lot of time in Japan, in South Korea, Taiwan, India, Nepal. I have been all over and had the very fortunate experience of meeting with leaders. You know, sometimes as a journalist, you're 1 hour you're in the room with the people in power, and the next hour you're having a heart-to-heart with someone who can't afford shoes, and you have to find a way to sort of bridge those very different worlds. So I have I have three main points that I want to make representing a masthead. We call it, in English, we call it a masthead newspaper. That's something that predates what I like to call the digital dark age, this moment of so much information that is just poured in front of us over the last 30 years, and it's accelerating. The amount of information in front of us is totally overwhelming. A lot of it's toxic. There's divisive information. Everybody here has a computer in their pocket spraying information at them from the minute they wake up in the morning until the minute they go to bed. And many people have lost the discipline to just turn it off and have direct communication with each other. So in that digital dark age moment that we're in, my first point is the need for media outlets, especially this masthead, older media outlets that have been around for a while. They need to promote civility. This is incredibly important. This is a responsibility. They have to promote civility. I'm not talking about not being critical or even highlighting major disagreements, but what I'm talking about is a responsibility not to promote disparaging rhetoric or extremism, and whether that's religious extremism or political extremism. This is a big responsibility. I'll give you an example of what we do at Washington Times. We have a very clear distinction between our opinion page, which is it's notoriously conservative in the American landscape. It's very Republican, and that opinion page is a battle space of civil disagreements, mostly among Republicans, by the way, which is pretty interesting. But there's a very clear line between that page and the news pages, which are mainly based on fact. And so that's very important, is civility in doing that process. The second major responsibility is to embrace the need for media independence. And what I'm talking about is not having governments control all media. I don't think that government-financed media is entirely wrong. There are plenty of government-backed news organizations around the world that provide very clear and needed information, but there should be transparency about government involvement in those media. As soon as that transparency goes away, then we have the result of total confusion about what is propaganda and what is true. I'll give you the example of RT, Russia Today. This became a global satellite television network. It became a network of independent news websites, all of it funded by the Kremlin without any real clear disclosure that, in fact, the channel is a Russian propaganda outlet spreading all sorts of information disparaging democracies around the world and trying to portray them as totally chaotic, incapable of having peace, et cetera, et cetera. So there needs to be disclosure. Think of Voice of America or Radio Free Asia. It's pretty well known that these are companies that get U.S. Government funding. That's disclosed. If you go to their website, it should be very clear to people. But there needs to be media independence. The ability of companies like the Washington Times, the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. I'm talking about American newspapers. But this has got to occur in countries around the world. The final and third point ties to the first point about civility, and this is that media organizations need to have a deep respect for truth and integrity. And I know that people want to debate the truth and have been debating the truth forever and will, but the truth can be debated in a civil way, and media organizations can achieve integrity by focusing their work on something we all knew growing up, but seems to be increasingly out of reach. It used to be called facts. Facts. What are the facts? Focusing on the facts, not just everyone's reaction to what the facts may or may not be. So, truth and integrity. In review and in conclusion, the need for media outlets to promote civility, the need for media independence, and the need for a focus on truth and integrity. With that, I want to again express my gratitude for being able to come up here. What an incredibly diverse crowd. I feel honored just to be a face in this crowd and among the respected group here. Every time I meet someone just in the audience at a UPF event, I'm usually blown away by, they tend to be more important and more influential than I am. So please introduce yourself if you haven't, and thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Guy. We're now going to move to the business side, and I am again delighted to invite Mr. Long Bee Lee from Malaysia, who is the chairman of the Malaysian Association of Canada. He began his career as an economist in a Malaysian government agency responsible for developing industrial and foreign investment. And in 1978, Mr. Lee was assigned to Toronto, Canada, to promote Canada-Malaysia economic cooperation and joint ventures. He won the Hakka Award of Distinction for Community Service, and we're so delighted to have you here today with us. So let's welcome Mr. Lee from Malaysia to come and say a few words. And as he comes, following the panel, we're going to bring chairs up on the stage so we'll be a little more relaxed and have some discussion with everybody. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Now I got to adjust this because the previous guy is so tall. Anyway, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, when I first received an invitation to speak on this topic, I thought I'm supposed to speak on the media role. I'm not a professional in the media side. But I'm humble and honored to share the stage, or given the opportunity to share the stage with my esteemed fellow members of the panel, Jim Rogers. You are my idol. Anyway, so I'm going to speak on the role of media from the outside in, okay? Now, I don't know how many of you heard of Malcolm X, the American black Muslim human rights activist. He once said, the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have power to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent. And that's power. Because they control the mind of the masses. Yes, the media has a vital role in shaping public opinion, influencing attitudes, and disseminating information about current events, issues, and trends. A century ago, media was basically confined to print, radio, and television. But over the last 30 years, the media landscape has evolved and expanded to an equally, if not more widespread and influential forms such as social media, websites, and mobile applications. This digital technology has made it possible for people to get more information in real time, and social media has been used to alter and change relationships globally. The world is now a cosmopolitan society with different cultures and people virtually connected to the internet. The media, in particular, has a significant impact on the way people perceive the world around them. As someone who has traveled and observed different cultures, I've seen how media can create stereotypes and reinforce negative perceptions about certain cultures and communities. On the other hand, it can also be a powerful tool for promoting understanding and respect for diverse cultures and promoting peace. It is indeed a double-edged sword. You see, as a child growing up in a small town in Malaysia, I was exposed to lots of Hollywood movies, especially the Wild West movies, in which cowboys such as John Wayne was portrayed as a good guys, and the indigenous people, who was known as the Red Indians then, were savage and bad. So each time when an Indian was shot, the crowd would cheer and applause, you know. That's how our minds were conditioned and stereotyped by the influence of the entertainment media. That show you the power of media, which can act as a tool for peace or conflict. I just hope Hollywood and other entertainment media will stop production of any movies that stereotype and undermine negatively the public perception of any culture or community. Thank you. On the other hand, the media can play a crucial role in promoting culture of peace by highlighting the positive aspects of different cultures and communities. Promoting dialogue and understanding is one of the main roles of the media can play towards embarking on a peace mission. Through the dissemination of accurate information, media can help to break down stereotypes and misconceptions that can lead to conflict and divisions. Moreover, the media can help to promote peace by highlighting the positive examples of conflict resolution and peaceful coexistence. By showcasing the efforts of individuals and organizations such as UPF who are working towards peace, media can inspire others to get involved and make a difference. It can also give voice to marginalized and underrepresented groups, which can help to reduce discrimination and equality. The other key role of the media can play is educating people about the complexities of global issues and promoting awareness about the consequences of conflicts and the benefits of peace. It can also provide a forum for international dialogue and diplomacy. Through platforms such as social media and video conferencing, individuals and organizations from different countries can exchange ideas and perspectives, fostering greater understanding and cooperation. We have to recognize social media is becoming more and more ingrained in our life. If we adopt these tools in a good way, social media can be an effective way to connect people, intercultural connections, and even give voice to people who might be silenced or marginalized by conventional media. But we have to be mindful of the downfall of these platforms, especially unverified information, harmful and hateful content. The reality is that social media spreads information much faster than the traditional media nowadays. We need to ensure our legislatures and regulators keep up with the pace. And social media companies need to build a culture of inclusivity, respectfulness, and protection of privacy into their platforms and technologies. Indeed, media can also serve as a tool to raise awareness and mobilize public opinion in support of peace initiatives and diplomacy efforts. Economic media can highlight the economic benefits of peace through trade and investment and economic cooperation, which can motivate nations to work toward peaceful resolution of conflicts. The role of the economy in promoting world peace is multifaceted. A stable and growing economy can contribute to social stability and reduce the likelihood of conflict. One of the primary ways the economy can promote peace is through trade and investment. By engaging and increasing trade between countries, nations can become more interdependent and less likely to involve in conflict. It is a well-known fact that trade can promote economic growth and development, which can lead to increased social and political stability. It has been tested and proven that economic partnerships, trade agreements, and investment initiatives, so long as they are mutually beneficial, fair, and equitable, foster stability, can reduce conflict over resources, and create incentive for peaceful relations between nations. Just look at the success of EEC, ASEAN, USMCA, formerly known as NAFTA, just to name a few trade multilateral agreements, and the impact towards peaceful environment. Another way that economy can promote peace is through foreign direct investment. When I was in Malaysia, I witnessed how foreign investment can help to build an economy by creating jobs, stimulate growth, and through transfer of technology and knowledge. FDI can also create opportunities for cultural exchange and learning, which leads to mutual understanding and respect between nations. GDP alone is not enough to bring peace and prosperity to a country. To ensure a sustainable economy and long-lasting peace, policy makers must endeavor to narrow the gap between the have and the have-not, between the people and between countries. As members of the International Media Association for Peace, I think we have the responsibility to use our influence and resources to promote peace and harmony. Yes, we cherish freedom of press, but it is not free in its absolute sense. It comes with responsibility, honesty, truth, fairness, and respect, without which peace to the world is just an elusive dream. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. We'll now be delighted to invite a great friend of UPF. We first met in 2020, before the pandemic, Mr. Jim Rogers, who's known throughout the world. He's an American businessman, financial commentator based in Singapore. Rogers is the chairman of Beeline Interests. He's the co-founder of the Quantum Fund and the Soros Fund Management, also the creator of the Rogers International Commodities Index. I think I've heard him speak a dozen times. Every time is fascinating, and I'm so delighted to invite you to the stage, Jim, and share your thoughts with us on your wisdom as a real sage on how economy affects peace.
Thank you very much. I am
Great
delighted to be here. I'm delighted to see all of you here in Korea. I'm very keen on Korea now. I've been asked to speak a little bit about the economy, prosperity, and peace. And as you know, throughout history, philosophers, generalists, politicians have all tried to figure out a way to bring prosperity, or at least to each other. Frequently that involved war. It may surprise some of you to know that 450 years ago, or 400 years ago, the Japanese invaded Korea another time. And the reason they invaded Korea was because Korea had silver mines, and a Korean discovered a way to smelt, to return the ore into silver. Well, the Japanese said, oh, that sounds very good. We would like to have that too. We want to be rich as well. And so the Japanese invaded Korea to steal the smelting process. They didn't say it was to steal the smelting process. They said it was for liberty, et cetera, et cetera. But the real reason was, let's get the smelters so we can be rich too. So throughout history, many people, they claim one thing, but the truth is that they want prosperity. Karl Marx, some of you remember Karl Marx. Karl Marx knew this was true too. The name of his book, his main book, was Das Kapital. He knew that if you had the capital, you needed the capital to develop a society and to develop prosperity and an economy. So many people have known this throughout history. Many wars have started because of somebody trying to get somebody else's money. Most of us cannot justify it, but at the time, the politicians and the generals blame it on the evil enemy. But if there's prosperity, there's much less likelihood of war. Some of you know the difference in East Germany and West Germany. Well, now there's no war between the Germanys, North Vietnam and South Vietnam. Now there's no war because both countries, both sections, have equal prosperity. I don't know how many of you had rather live in North Korea than in South Korea. If you can see this, well, you can't see the map now, but if you could see the top half of this map, you would see a lot of electricity because North Korea has electricity. I mean, South Korea has electricity. North Korea does not because they do not have prosperity. Eventually, the 38th parallel is going to open, the DMZ is going to open, and in the north they're going to have electricity and prosperity and who knows what else. Blackpink will be there, BTS will be there, everybody will be happy and drinking tea and coffee together and beer together and having a good time. So if we can bring prosperity to the north, we will also bring peace. And that is usually the case in most parts of the world. And if you go back and read your history, you will find that prosperous nations that trade with each other frequently do not go to war with each other. They go to war with each other, and there's something they think they need from other people. As I said, the Japanese invaded Korea to get the smelting process. Once upon a time, the Dutch and the British had huge wars over shipbuilding because the Dutch were the best shipbuilders in the world. I can go on and on and on. I'd rather not. I'd rather go on and on about ways to open the world economy to trade, to prosperity. And if we have trade and prosperity, I don't think you'll have as many politicians fighting each other, trying to get the money from somebody else. We will all make our own way. We will all have our own economic prosperity, and we won't have to worry about fighting with the evil foreigners. Politicians love to blame their problems on foreigners. Whenever something goes wrong in a country, the politicians never say, "This is my fault." They always say, "Those foreigners, those evil foreigners, their hair is different, their skin is different, their language is different, their religion is different." So they blame it on the foreigners. So if we can have prosperity, if we can have open trade with each other so that we can all prosper together, history is very clear. History is very, very, very clear that when nations are prosperous and trading together, there's usually peace. when there are economic problems, that's when the politicians blame the foreigners and we start having wars and fights. So I look forward to the day when the 38th parallel is open, when the DMZ is open, there is no DMZ again, and the North and the South is trading with each other, drinking tea together, eating rice, whatever they want to do. So when we're all together, trading and prospering, we will have much, much more peace. So if any of us can figure out a way to bring prosperity to the world, or even to countries, we will bring peace to the world. And I will tell you, the world's a lot better off with peace than with war. I'm old enough to have lived through some war times. It ain't much fun. Peace is much better. Thank you.
Thank you. You forgot your Coca-Cola. I'll bring it to you. Thank you so much. A fascinating aspect of working with the UPF family is the fact that it's a family and it's global, and there's people from in this room, look around, from every culture, every race. And I'm so delighted to bring our friend, Dr. S.P. Singh, who besides being an ambassador of the Sikh faith, is also an astute and very accomplished business professional. So let's welcome Dr. S.P. Singh. Thank you. Excuse me just a second. Thank you. I'll take this initiative.
Distinguished friends, a very good afternoon to all of you. Originally, I was told to speak on peace and media, but before the start of the session, Thomas informed me that please speak on business. Well, friends, I wear two different hats. One is being a religious and spiritual leader in our Sikh community, representing the Sikh faith in the Western Hemisphere as ambassador of Sikh religion. The second hat I wear, that I have been in the United States for over 45 years. And in our organization, we have, if you will, two different divisions or departments. One is for-profit, and the other one is non-profit. The for-profit entities that we have, and I'll just share with you from my personal experience and my personal involvement in them, the non-profit, the for-profit organizations, we make whatever money we make or profits we make, we spend all of that on a non-profit. Some of you who are from the United States might be familiar with an organic tea called Yogi Tea. That is our organization. We manufacture that in the US, and it's the largest organic natural tea in the United States. So we do that. We have our manufacturing plant in Eugene, Oregon. The second aspect of our for-profit organization is the security company, a private security company by the name of Akal Security. And this company was formed over 25 years ago and provides private security services to government installation, primarily the US government, both or all the forces, including the US Army, Navy, and the Air Force. We also provide security to many US government installations all around the world, including embassies and other US installations. Well, after the 9/11, most of the tier 1 security came in the hands of the TSA or the government. The first line of security is government. The second is private companies like us. So we have an employee base of over 15,000 people, generating revenue of over $3 billion in our private security. So I'm very familiar with the work ethics. So let me speak, as time is limited, so let me speak on the work ethics in what we practice. Being a Sikh, I follow the Sikh teachings of my gurus. Guru Nanak, who was the founder of our Sikh faith, emphasized ethical earning. In fact, one of the pillars of our Sikh faith is kirt kamai, honest living, live or earned by the sweat of your brow. He preached that by his example when he traveled. By the way, he traveled over half of his life faraway places, bringing the message of universal peace, happiness, harmonious life, but more importantly, ethical earnings. There's many stories, but I'll just share a very short story with you. In one of his travels, he was invited by the villagers, and these villagers prepared one of the most richest businessman in that village. His name was Malik Bhago. He prepared a big feast for Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak was also invited by a very humble businessman, Mai Bhago. His name was Bhago. Now, Guru Nanak preferred to have the meal of the simple businessman because his food, his meal represented ethical and honest labor. He rejected the meal from the rich businessman. Just to emphasize, Guru Nanak believed in ethical and truthful honor, dignity of labor, dignity of workforce. We also practice that. Whatever our profits are, most of those, 90% of those, in addition to paying the employees and all that, go on peace building, on spiritual and religious aspects. And as you may have seen all around the world, I believe our faith, our religion, our Sikh faith is one of the most, they volunteer their time, their money, their efforts, and they are the most generous in helping other societies, other communities. That's why whenever there are any natural calamities or disasters in the world, after the first responders, you will see the Sikhs serving langar, hot meals, medicine, healthcare, that is. And I'm very delighted, as time is very short, I'm very delighted to be here. I came all the way from Los Angeles, California, representing with my Sikh brothers, Dr. S.P. Singh Oberoi from Dubai, who we are very proud of because he spends, just to give you an example, here's a living example. Dr. S.P. Singh Oberoi spends 98% of his profits. He's a very, very successful businessman. 98% of his profits on charitable clinics, medical care, dialysis centers, blood work all over India. And I'm also glad I'm here with Dr. Surinder Gill, who lives in Washington, D.C. All three of us are representing the Sikh faith. And I thank UPF, I thank Thomas, I thank all of the UPF team for giving us an opportunity to share some of our thoughts from the Sikh perspective. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Singh. I wish we had a whole day to give each of you the respectful period of time you'd need. So I appreciate you being so concise, but every speaker so far has had so much to say in just a short time. So thank you again. Let's give all of our speakers a round of applause once again. Well, we'll go from the origins of the Sikh faith, of course, and also being in Los Angeles and DC and parts of America. Now we're going to go down to the southern part of the Western Hemisphere, to Panama, and I'm so thrilled to invite Dr. Jorge Alberto Ceballos Rodriguez. Dr. Rodriguez is a professor of law and politics. He has a master's degree in human rights, criminal justice, and international humanitarian law, a legal advisor to the Panama National Assembly. So now we'll be delighted to hear from the perspective of an expert in practicing law, leading that to the political side, and help give us your wisdom here. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm going to make my presentation in Spanish because I'm proud to be Panamanian. Panamanian, we speak Spanish, and I like it. Quiero... Yep. ¿Sí? Inicialmente quiero pedir disculpas a los traductores porque traía todo un texto preparado, pero la interacción con personas y líderes como ustedes han hecho cambiar la perspectiva.
Has changed my perspective 360 degrees. I came here in this. I want to interact with people, with many people, knowing about their experiences, seeing how the UPF and you manage the topic of peace, protecting peace, promoting behavior for peace has changed, and I want to do it how my colleague here did it. What comes from my heart, I want to share, and I hope you understand. I come from Panama. My name is Jorge Alberto Ceballos Rodriguez. I want to thank Mother Moon and Dr. Who invited me. I want to thank everyone here who in some way has promoted in me new values, knowing that there are organizations like this who promote unity, who promote family values, who promote positive behavior. That's a way of promoting peace, not only avoiding war, but promoting situations between human beings that can come from in some way to build a culture of peace. I came from Panama. It's a small country, around 4 million people, in 75,000 square kilometers. We have the Panama Canal that joins two oceans. It's a pillar of the world trade that gives the country around $4 billion annually. We live from tourism. $1.5 billion come to our country through tourism. But just as any country, we have issues. But we fight with them. We've strengthened through laws that promote, for me, the most important in a nation is judicial security. We have to invest and participate with Panama. I assure you, a democracy that might not be the best one in South America, but we work to promote that Panama. This is a story in 1930s. So they asked the president to make Panama the Switzerland of Panama, but he said, I cannot do this because I have to bring Swiss people if we want to make Switzerland here. But we have to work with what we have. We have a really good bank system. More than 67 banks around the world operate and work in Panama. The tourism through I am a lawyer. I work with human rights. I also work with promoting and avoid negative behavior that can affect our families. That's why we want to promote a culture of peace. Also, now we have an issue in Panama because of our geographical position. A lot of illegal migration from Venezuela, Colombia, Africa, looking for this American dream. They use Panama as a bridge for that, and we want to promote not only humanitarian aid, but we also want to give legal aid for free to these people: clothing, food, shelter, health. We all provide this. Not only us, but a group of professionals who does this for these people who struggle. For me, I'm proud to be from Panama. But I want to tell you a little bit about Panama, a little bit of what we do, promoting this culture of peace and situations, interactions, like the ones I've had with you guys. My perspective has changed 360 degrees in thinking of what can we do for peace, not only thinking about war, but thinking that the person next to you is a brother or a sister. Oh, sorry, I couldn't translate this. We work in education. We work promoting in our children, our young people, protection for the elders. for us, it's important as a person, included in many. My father told me, get into everything, because you're going to have opportunity to meet people and do different things. Because doing, as Albert Einstein said, do the same thing and pretend that you're going to get a different result. I'm grateful to meet you, and the leaders, just as Jim, I want to see the unification of both Koreas. Maybe I will see it. I'm still young. I'm 47 years old, and I want to thank you for this opportunity. I wish you blessings. I thank Mother Moon. Keep working in this way. Keep doing these initiatives, these movements, because this is what's going to change the world, step by step. We're going to do this, and thank you very much.
Our final speaker this evening is Mr. Germain Yair Feliz from the Dominican Republic. So impressed with his bio because he's a man of fusion and of integration. He's a journalist and a producer of TV, a business leadership and management professor at the Management Leadership Training Institute of America. He's the host of Agenda del Pueblo, a broadcast by the Nuevo Diario TV, entered politics with the Christian Socialist Party, acting as the National Administrative Secretary of the political institution, and fascinating, he has a degree in theology from the Shalom Theological University, a man of multiple talents, and he'll close us out with your wisdom. Please come to the podium and help us out here. Thank you very much. Will you speak in Spanish? In Spanish. So he will also speak in Spanish, so go back to your translator.
Okay.
Excelencias,
honorable heads of states, honorable heads of parliaments, distinguished world personalities, special guests, press members, it is a pleasure that you are here participating in this very important World Summit to which the Universal Peace Federation has summoned us. I thank God and this honorable summit for allowing me to address these words. I am very pleased to come from the heart of the Caribbean and share about contemporary challenges for a global order, focused on a world culture of peace. Receive a cordial greeting with the affection that characterizes us Dominicans. When addressing here, I want to talk about a political leader in my country, Soraya Aquino, which in the future we would like to see her as the first woman to govern Dominican Republic. When addressing here on the role of the media to ensure that the media contributes to the global culture of peace that is promoted by the Universal Peace Federation and also this summit, it is crucial to take into account the rising economic inequalities, social turmoil, and the growing digital divide. It is important to answer certain questions related to those of us who represent the media. First, what is the role of the media in the creation of social roles and addressing societal issues? Second, in what ways can the media be utilized to promote societal equality and economic empowerment? How can we enhance the visibility of the needs of the most vulnerable individuals or groups? And what is the influence of the media sector on the decision-making process? How does the media influence the promotion of social peace? The answers to these questions and others that may arise lead us to identify the challenges of the media in order to achieve the integral health of societies based on context of peace. We have as challenges and obstacles to make the media a space for building peace as a tool to achieve the integral health of societies, to develop the necessary skills to train journalists, producers, advertisers who are creative and empathetic when addressing the communication of social problems, to advocate for the development, implementation, and promotion of state policies that promote peace in societies, to establish alliances to face political and economic pressures that threaten local, regional, and global peace, to develop ways and means of working to avoid the government's economic dependence on the media and thus avoiding failing to assume the role that corresponds to us, to demand the quality and the impartiality of the media regarding the social struggles of the most vulnerable populations and individuals. I want to specifically point out the immense challenge that concerns us in terms of the information and misinformation war from social networks, the immediacy, the views, the unbridled pursuit of likes, the intention of being the first, having followers and generating fame, followed by money, cannot take us away from the immense responsibility that falls on those of us who manage the media. From this scenario, we highlight the importance to contribute to the formation of communication media, responsible in their exercise, in the informative content that they communicate, the importance of always considering that the media are a fundamental piece in the search for global peace. On the other hand, we have the great task of incorporating into the media an agenda that deals with the renewal and recovery of family values, considering that from there, the world is informed and, for better or worse, taken for granted what we emit through them. I stress the importance of this Honorable Universal Peace Federation. Continue to involve the actors of the media in the objectives that we seek. Being so, they will be the representatives of the media of the countries of the world, the honorable ambassadors of peace who carry the message, guide the peoples of the world, and write or comment in favor of the culture of peace that we must build. With all the energy I'm feeling, I send a message to the owners, directors, collaborators of the media. The greatest role or legacy that a citizen can leave is not the influence or fame that his name generates, but more than that, your selfless contribution to the world living in peace, families following the model by which they were created, and that we work to overcome the inequalities we face. As a family, that all those scattered throughout the world, we can say brothers and sisters. Finally, once again, I congratulate this World Summit for Peace. At this time, sitting true mother, only sitting at the same table, listening to each other, can we come to an agreement and assume the challenges that the future holds for us, persisting without giving up in our pursuit of building a culture of peace. May God give us the wisdom to make a positive impact on the issues discussed here and achieve the desired outcomes. It is a mission that requires ongoing effort, constant empowerment, and above all, the goodwill of those of us committed to this cause. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you so much. Okay, it's time for a few questions. And I think to make things simple It's 5:18. Would you agree if we finish a little early to give you a break? Maybe at 5:30? Show of hands, all in favor? I'm totally overruled by the majority here. So, friends, and instead of taking the time to put chairs up here, let's just keep it simple. So, from the audience, is there anyone who has a question for anyone on the panel, either the business or media side? And staff, I hope you have, I don't know where the microphones are, but there's a hand in the back. Let's go ahead. And sir, just stand up. I don't know if you just speak from the floor. Go ahead. The gentleman in the back here. Let's hold your thought just a second. There we go. And we're going to need a couple of people to help. So let's have one mic on this and one mic on that. I would like to get a question from this side of the audience. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Christoph Karl from Poland. Thank you for this very interesting presentations, especially this example about John Wayne appearing as a good guy and the Indigene people appearing as the bad guys. So this is my question to Washington Times. Facts seem to appear different depending on the perspective, how we look at them. So my question is, how much does a faith system or political conviction have influence in writing about facts? And is there completely objective journalism possible? And if not, for what values you are standing for?
If not, what values are you standing for? Is that?
This means when completely objective journalism is not possible because you always look at facts from a certain perspective.
Okay, I got
For
the
what
question.
values are you standing for?
I think is Guy Taylor still here? I think he may have. Let me take a shot at your question there. It's a great question, and it's a consistent question in the realm of journalism. Does a faith perspective or a political perspective affect your reporting of facts? I would say that naturally it would. For example, from a faith perspective, if you honor human dignity, you're going to pay attention to violations of that. But I think, at least from the Washington Times, there was a survey done by one of the most important market research firms in America, MRI and Simmons, 3 years ago. And of course, America rages in terms of polarization and fake news and attack media. So the survey of about 100 of the top media corporations wanted to know how the American public treated trustworthiness in media. Which media could you trust to deliver facts, despite whether it was coming from the left or the right? It wasn't really a faith question at all. But I'm proud to say that the Washington Times came out among all of the top 100 companies, including the New York Times and all the major players. The Times came out as the 5th most reliable newspaper company and the 10th most reliable media company. Thank you. And when you dig into the data, the reason is very simple. And I really honor guys like Guy Taylor and our editors, because we don't simply follow clickbait or just simply try to make money. We really adhere to the classical view that journalism is there to serve the public and find the facts and do the best we can to show both sides. So that's been our experience, and I'm sure that our publishers and other media folks would probably be good to respond to that. So where's the floor mics here? I'm going to ask our two journalist experts from both Nepal and Cambodia to comment on that. How in your, if you don't mind, sir, I've said my piece for the Times and WashingtonTimes.com. Go there every day and you'll see what I mean. But Mr. Poi, yeah, from Cambodia.
Yeah, but basically the fake news is common everywhere now in the world. Of course, in Cambodia, it's big issues for journalism, for media. And we are very alert, very sensitive all the times. So that's why the professional journalism against the social media, the digital one, this is a kind of big discussions and debate. So almost every day that in Cambodia, especially the Journalists Association, like myself as a president, I always share my own experience from my almost 30 years in journalism. A lot of fake news, of course, I realize in Cambodia, but at the same time, we try to, the professional journalism, traditional one, basically the one who can help clarify proof. So if you, in Cambodia, the problem is the social media, that a lot of people seems to believe in social media, and this is what that we have to tell them, please be careful, that please rely on traditional and professional media. For example, the major news, for example, the earthquake, airplane crash, bomb, so on and so forth. You have to rely on CNN, BBC, so on and so forth, those kind of big media establishment, rather than rely on social media. So this is what my message.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. And let's hear also from Nepal. And by the way, may I also add that this woman is the publisher of one of the major media companies in that country and in that region, and her whole family has a history. So I really appreciate what you have to say.
Hello, namaste. Good afternoon, good evening. Yeah, very good questions. Actually, I'm from Nepal. We believe media should be trust. We are published since 30 years. From 30 years, we are publishing we are working in newspaper. We always publish in truth news. As we all know, media is the mirror of nation, watchdog. So, in our country, media changed a lot of things. Like in 15 years back to here, we have many political changes. Everyone believes in media. Media changed policymaker. Media is the middleman of the public and the government, policymaker. So we always emphasize the truth. We keep the investigator, which news is correct, or we verify. And only then we'll publish news. So media person should be, I always compare with the best politician and best publisher is same. Always focus on truth, always focus on country, what is happening, what is right. So fake news is, who publish fake news, that person is not, that publisher, that media is not a correct media. So we have to focus on truth, and we believe in truth. Thank you. Is that right?
Thank you very much. That was great. Thank you. Thank you so much. We have one more question. Yes, sir. Yeah. This will be our final question for the evening, and please introduce yourself.
I'm Dr. Gill from United States. You know, media is promoting business through advertisement, through news, promoting governments, promoting peoples. If one line is affected and media is taken to task, what is the security of the media which can be established for the individual that he feels safe to write, he feels safe in the community, because public is attacking, government is attacking, and the alone media cannot move forward honestly. So my question is, what is the security of the media? Thank you.
Let me ask you one more time, in one sentence. What is the question?
What is the security of a media person who's promoting government, who's promoting business, who's promoting individuals. If one line is otherwise, he has been attacked by the government, by the public, what security an individual or media person has in this era? That is my question.
Okay, I'll do my best to respond, but I think I may ask, you know what? I'm a man of faith, and I'm inspired to ask your colleague, who probably understood the question more clearly, to give us a response. And I asked you to talk about business, but you're also an expert in the media. Please, Dr. Singh. Yeah.
I'll try to
Is
do
that
my
fair?
best.
Is that an okay way to do this? So,
Yeah. His question is that if a media writes something and later on he's reprimanded or he's attacked, then what is the security for the media? Because he will not be able to independently give his views. So that was the essence of his question. So he's asking what is the security for the...
what is the security?
Security levels, or, you know, what security can he be so that he can express his views freely?
And let me ask you to give him the answer.
Okay. Well, we live in a country that is a free country. I'm talking about the United States of America. And a lot of countries are now moving towards democratic norms. So the security, I mean, there is hardly any security for any one of us. So media people should go out and report independently whatever views they have, whatever they want to express in the strongest form, because that is a democratic way to report news, to inform the people the truth. And truth in media, like our Nepal, publisher, media person said, truth in everything. And in fact, let me also mention a little bit about our Sikh faith, about how Guru Nanak, promoted our ethics in business, ethics in media, ethics in communication, and morals, and how to deal with the public. Guru Nanak said, truth is the highest virtue. Higher still is truthful living. So living a truthful life as it relates to media, report whatever you need to report, whatever is the truth. Because sometimes there is negative media also. A negative media or a wrong report can create havoc in communities. And that is what we need to be aware of in today's world. And not everything on Google is true, by the way, which I'm sure all of you know. So reporting ethically, reporting truthfully, reporting fearlessly, reporting properly, reporting the correct news is the essence of practicing media practices in your field. And in the business field, ethical living, truthfulness, and that's what, when Guru Nanak came back from his 4 journeys, which he traveled for over half of his life, he started farming. And when he started farming, he came back to Kartarpur, which is now in Pakistan, and he was a farmer. Whatever he would make from his farming, he would share it with the community. So that's where the concept of langar started, which is going on for the last almost 500 years now. So that is the concept of langar, which is free meals. And another tidbit, let me share another thing with you. There's so much to share. Guru Nanak started the first ethical business practice in the last 500 years, and it was called Sacha Soda. Sacha means truth, Soda means business. So his father gave him 20 rupees, and his father said, go and do some business and earn some money and bring back the profits. So what did Guru Nanak do? He went out with one of his father's friend, or one of the person that was working for his father. So he went out and he saw a bunch of, saints and bhagats, 20 of them, who were hungry. So he told his friend, he says, go prepare, go buy the food and let us feed these hungry people. So he fed those hungry people, came back. His father said, how much money did you make? He said, I did not make anything, but I did Sacha Soda, the soda, and that langar continues today, 525 years later. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, we've gone a couple minutes over, but in fact, we're early. So we're going to end, but I want to add one final comment and then ask Mr. Rogers to give us one final comment. And my comment is two sides. I serve as global coordinator of the International Media Association for Peace, as well as the International Association for Peace and Economic Development. And I love the balance between that, working in the media field and working in business. And what I really love most is to learn best practices as a lifelong learner. And the essence of that is to help young people get into our professions. So I have a request to all of you. Please help us grow the Media Association for Peace all over the world, and please help us grow the International Association for Peace and Economic Development. Please consider yourself our senior advisors and take ownership of this. Imagine if we had 1,000 journalists who have the same kind of orientation that we do in every continent. We don't all have to agree on everything, but imagine 1,000 journalists in every continent and 1,000 business executives and leaders and entrepreneurs who share these values. What type of synergy we could create. And that's where I'd like to see us go. I'm a big fan of strategy and execution. And so I ask your help. Secondly, I am so, almost brings me to a bit of tears. I'm so happy that we have an elected official from the People's Republic of China, from Hong Kong. And I was not able to hear your speech yesterday, ma'am, but I wondered how you felt today with such very broad and impactful discussions from people like Dr. Pillsbury and Mike Pompeo. And we're all concerned about how China and America and the major countries and the minor countries can harmonize. In a sense, the future of the world is at stake. And therefore, I really honor you, ma'am, for joining us together. And I want to ask we give her a round of applause to have come from the People's Republic of China. And with that, somebody I consider a mentor, thank you. As a mentor, because he was, I think, born in Baltimore, a true American, but moved to Singapore. His daughters, who are famous because they speak fluent Chinese. This is a man who's invested in China. He understands China. China and America will guide the future of the world. It can go very dark. It can get very deadly. Or it can be bright. And Jim Rogers is someone I trust who understands how to navigate. So in 1 minute, because we're going to close out for not commercials, but for dinner, so you're standing in front of dinner. But Jim, if you would close us out with just a word of advice. How do we navigate the future?
Well, I have only 1 minute, so I will tell you what I am trying to teach my children is please examine both sides. And one problem with journalism in many parts of the world is they give the party line, but they do not give both sides. And I try to teach my children to read 2 or 3 or 4 newspapers so you can get the full view, and then you make your decision. And a problem with most newspapers in the world is they don't give both sides. So my advice to you is give both sides and let us decide.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jim. And thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I know it's been a long day, and I really appreciate all of the preparation of our panelists. And I wish you best night tonight. You have a little break. We start dinner, I guess, at 6 o'clock. Thank you. God bless you. And we'll see you later. Thank you. Oh, yes. If I could ask all the panelists to come to the stage, we'll do a group photo. And somebody lost their phone. Yeah.